It would be great to know that something as simple as a bird feeder, a nest box, the comings and goings of birds during the breeding season or through autumn, even if it's not bird food, it's a chopped up apple on a bird table, and just being able to being involved with that apple. Where does it come from? How do we chop it up? Where do we put it? And let's see what comes in. So, what comes into the garden, what lands on the bird table. Is that something that helps the world that we're talking about? Can it help?
I'm absolutely sure that it can. And I think there are actually multiple ways in which it can really help. So if anyone listening has got an autistic child or grandchild, and realistically somebody will have, that could be a real opportunity for that child if you can put a bird table in the garden and then encourage the child to watch the birds coming and going. That could develop into one of these special interests that I've described, which are one of the great joys of autistic life. It's something that you become so interested in that you need to know all about it. You want to read books to observe more. So it could be that that autistic child becomes really interested in watching the birds on the bird table, which would give them some passionate focus, but also would give them a reason to be out in the garden away from people, keeping quiet, which could help them manage their emotions and their stresses. There's lots of information that they could find out, which I'm sure that would be hugely helpful for that autistic need to know everything. But the other way in which I think it could be really helpful is that actually it's nature study, birds, the countryside, they come with a community. So if an autistic person has a passionate interest in nature, as they grow up, there's a ready-made community of people who are also interested, who will be happy to talk about that passion. And so it might actually be a way into a social support group in the future. There are a number of things like that. I happen to use music like that as well. So because I'm a trained musician, I do musical activities, and that gives me a social structure whereby I can be with people doing something of common purpose, but without having to do complete free socialization while I'm doing it. But I'm thinking the example you give, Siren, it could be an opportunity for an autistic child to begin to dock into that community of nature lovers that they can find online and in the local area, and a way to socialise, to be with people, to make connections that doesn't depend on having that sort of small talk, free chat that we autistic people can find very difficult. I would imagine that it would be much easier to start a conversation with, gosh, I saw a goldfinch on my bird feeder this morning, what did you see? Than having to start from nowhere, because that gives you a way in. And I would imagine that also the people who are maybe listening to this, if one thing that perhaps they and you could do would be to be as open as possible to kids or young people, or indeed adults, who might be autistic, who might be a little bit socially awkward, might not know the right thing to say, but who are passionately interested in nature and who would like to be part of their community.